They went into the movie theater expecting something that nobody had ever promised them, but that they thought that they were going to get, because that's what they had predicted. What's up, party people? Nice to hear you. It's time to sit down and put in those earbuds so as not to disturb the neighbors, because this is Off Book, a podcast all about Broadway, movies, TV shows, and so many other nerdy things. I'm your host, Marc Stoufer III, and today I'm going to be talking all about fan theories and how they affect a movie before it even gets released. To start off, there are really two main camps with fan theories. There's the camp that thinks they're amazing, and there's the camp that thinks they are destroying cinema as we know it. And like with most things, I lie somewhere in between those two extremes. On the one hand, you have all of the pretty much undeniable negative effects of fan theories. The first of those being that it raises audiences' expectations for a movie. Now, you might be saying,
shouldn't audiences go into a movie expecting it to be good?
Well, yes, but the issue with fan theories is that it raises the audience's expectations so much, to the point where it's often expecting way too much from any film. You find a lot of fan theories are for movies in a trilogy or a franchise like Star Wars or a Marvel movie. You don't often find fan theories about movies that are kind of one-off films, because there isn't much to speculate on. But with movies in a series, you get the opportunity to try to guess what's going to happen next in the series and try to connect it to the rest of the films in the universe. And there's a lot of different things you can do with theories. And that's kind of what causes the problem. Because with something like the MCU, there are so many different things that they could do with their characters. And so that means that there's a good likelihood that there could be a million fan theories about the next Marvel movie. And they could all be different, and they could all be entirely wrong. Which becomes a problem when people go into a movie thinking that they figured out the plot, and that the plot is this big, epic thing, when really it was never going to be that big, epic thing. It's not going to be the culmination of superhero movies. It's not going to be this amazing billion-dollar stunt scene and special effect. It's not going to win an Oscar for Best Actor, because it wasn't supposed to do that. It's not supposed to be the greatest movie ever. And had people just gone in to see it without hearing any of the fan theories, that's okay. They go in, they expect the movie to be pretty good, it's pretty good, they walk out of the theater happy. But instead, the people that have created these fan theories go into a movie theater to watch a pretty okay movie, but expecting it to be the most amazing movie ever made. Something that a lot of times is just not practical. It's not logistically possible, it wouldn't work well on screen, it's not palatable enough to an audience, it just isn't what the filmmakers had thought of or wanted to do. There's a chance that it's not even possible to do on screen. You can't do it in live action. But regardless of all that, that's what people are expecting to see, is something of that magnitude, maybe even that storyline. And so when what they see is, instead of that epic movie, it's just a pretty okay movie, they end up being disappointed. Which can make the audience notion of a movie worse than it would have been normally, because they were expecting something that they were never going to get in the first place. They went into the movie theater expecting something that nobody had ever promised them, but that they thought that they were going to get, because that's what they had kind of predicted. Another issue that you often find with fan theories is that it gives the audience a sense of ownership of the film. And again,
isn't that a good thing?
Yes, but what you find often with fan theories is when people create these theories, speculating what's going to happen, and then the movie doesn't deliver those expectations because it was never supposed to. Nobody had ever promised them anything like that. What you find is a lot of people, not everybody obviously, but some people, walk out of the theater and blame the movie. They say,
the fan theory I created in my basement was better than the top plot line that the executives in Marvel could have created. This was the best movie ever made.
And no, it wasn't. That was just the plot that they thought was going to work best for their audience, not just you, but the entire audience. In a theater over time, and the actors, and the set pieces, and the writing, and all the logistical stuff, that is the best movie that they could have made, potentially. But even if it's not, your fan theory being different, and in your opinion better, doesn't make the movie any worse. But what you find sometimes is that these communities of theorists believe that because they speculated as to what was going to happen, their theory is just as canon as the official plot of the film. So when a film doesn't deliver on that theory, they start to get upset at the movie for not listening to that theory. It was made probably after the film was already finished, based on things that might not even be possible. Now, that's not to say that theories are bad or that they're always wrong. There are a lot of very positive theory communities, and there are a lot of theories that end up being right, that end up predicting what's going to happen. But a lot of times, what you find is when they're wrong, some theorists will decide that it's the movie's fault, that they didn't do this other thing that this random person had decided would be cool. For all we know, they thought about it and just couldn't make it work or didn't want to make it work, and that's okay. But you end up with this group of fans thinking that it's their movie, that they own it, and that the movie did something wrong by not being what they had expected it to be based on very limited information. So you end up kind of inflating the perception of this movie to be overly negative because a whole bunch of people thought they knew what was going to happen and walked into the theater with expectations that were way higher than what was reasonable, than what was expected from the studio and from the filmmakers. And then when it doesn't deliver on those ridiculously high expectations, they blame the movie and they start to say the movie was terrible, which dissuades other people from going until they pay happy. And so you kind of start to see this chain reaction where this one theory can sometimes, quite literally one theory, can cause a whole bunch of people to not like a film or to not even go see a film because it was quote unquote not good, even though it did exactly what it was supposed to. Today's episode is sponsored by Snyder Marketing. Filmmaking is hard, and it's very likely that the finished product on any given production will be mediocre at best and won't generate that much press. But Snyder Marketing is here to change that. By over-marketing your film to a large degree before it gets released, you're sure to gain plenty of audience attention, and with it, a multitude of fan babies. All this means that whether your film meets people's expectations or not, a lot of people are definitely going to be talking about it. And now, the positive effects of fan theories. For as much as some people hate fan theories and call them the end of cinema, they can also do a lot of good. The first of those reasons being, well, the exact same thing as the bad reasons. I think that, like I've mentioned several times before, a lot of the downsides of theories, or just a plus side of fan theories, that have gone too far. The negative of raised expectations is just people expecting the movie to be good, but too much. The negative of audience believing that the film is theirs and that their opinion is the only one that matters is just the audience having a stake in the film and wanting to go see it and feeling a connection to it, which is, in essence, the ultimate goal of filmmaking. So a lot of the reasons that fan theories can be dangerous to a film's success are also the reasons that it does super well. And I think that it's this kind of popularity cyclone that blockbusters get caught in. I talked about this some in another episode about Martin Scorsese's comments on Marvel movies. They have this enormous press around them. They get hyped up so much. And because of all that press that they get, people start to make fan theories and speculate and make posters and make trailer edits and do cosplay. And all that generates more press, which generates more attention, which generates more press. So just this constant cycle of people talking about the film, which is super good for a film. That's one of the reasons that blockbusters do much better than one-off films in a lot of cases, is because they have so much media. And the more media they generate, the more media comes because of that media. So fan theories do often help to generate some more of that buzz in the media. It also gives the audience way more stake. If you go into a movie having no idea what's going to happen in the movie, then as long as the plot makes sense and isn't too confusing, you're probably going to feel like it was an okay plot. But if you've predicted what you think will happen in the plot, then you go into the movie theater with your own thoughts and your own feelings about the film. You haven't even seen it. You don't even know what it's about. But you've already thought a lot about it, and whether your theory is correct or not, you have a large stake in what will happen. You want good things to happen to these characters. You want the writing to be good. You want to see a very good plot. And like I mentioned before, if you don't like the official plot as much as the one you created, it can create negative experiences. But if it's as good or even better sometimes, then your theory is going to mean so much more to you than if you just watched it and liked the plot without having any ideas going into it. Because you thought, this is the coolest thing that can happen. I'm so excited for what they might do with this movie. And they did it. Or they blew it out of the water. That was so much cooler than I could have imagined, and I imagined a lot. So it creates this kind of community that's rooting for the movie, that really, really wants it to be good. And if it's good, if it manages to live up to those expectations, or even if it doesn't, but it still creates something that's good and that people like, it can create so much more positive connection with your audience, which again is what filmmaking is all about. But it's more than just the community around a certain film. It's more than just, I'm a Star Wars fan, Star Wars Episode 8 is coming out, I'm going to try to predict what happens. It's also, I'm a theorist. I'm not really a huge fan of Star Wars, but this theorist that I follow has a new theory. I'm going to try to read it. I'm going to get in discussions. I'm going to go research Star Wars so I can help to create these theories. Star Wars Episode 8 may be the first film in the Star Wars universe I see. I don't recommend, but hey, if you want to, you can. But I'm suddenly going to get invested in this universe because of all the fan theories. I'm going to start watching the other movies and reading other theories because of this one theory. The community of people that theorize and speculate, try to figure out what's going to happen, a lot of times talk about movies that they haven't seen before, in universes that they haven't experienced, but it creates this very rich group that kind of rallies around and says, I don't have a personal stake in this, but here's what I think will happen. And so it actually gets more people to go see the movie, and more people talking about the movie. And sometimes it is negative press, but press is press, There are some filmmakers that will say that a film that does horribly at the box office is better than one that doesn't get mentioned a lot, because at least people are talking about it. Some people will say that's wrong, but there are people that think that way. And so then, even if a theorist creates this amazing theory that's super outlandish, goes to see their first Marvel movie, and hates it, and writes a terrible review, people are going to see that, and they're going to be talking about it. And there's a chance they might go see the movie just to see it for themselves. It's the Cats phenomenon. Everybody was trying to figure out how the Cats movie was going to work, and people decided it wasn't that good. There are some people that like it, there are some people that hate it for legitimate reasons, but a lot of people just read, hey, this is a terrible movie. I want to go see it to see if it's actually as bad as people said it was. And that never would have happened had it not been for the community around both the Broadway production and the movie, and also just trying to figure out what's going to happen with theorists. And this phenomenon goes beyond even film. I'm recording this in December of 2020, and right now TikTok is writing a Ratatouille musical. It's very interesting. I encourage you to go look it up and try to learn more about it and listen to what they've written. But for those of you that don't know, during the COVID-19 quarantine, people on TikTok just decided to write a Ratatouille Broadway musical, and some of the songs are better than others, and there were some fundamental issues with the plot, but they're being super creative, and they have basically a full Broadway musical. And so when a Ratatouille musical inevitably comes to Broadway, whether it's inspired by this TikTok musical or not, there are a whole bunch of people that have written for a Ratatouille musical and are now invested in a Ratatouille musical that never would have been before. And it's only because of this kind of theorizing, this kind of trying to figure out what's going to happen in a Ratatouille musical, trying to do your own creative work to try to get to the same place you think the official creative team's going to. They're probably going to go see it, or they're just going to follow it, whether that's listening to the cast album, or trying to see it on stage somewhere, or watching a pro shot if it comes. They're going to have a vested interest in something they never would have before, not because they necessarily love Ratatouille or they love theater, but because, hey, this thing is happening, and it's weird, and it's a community, and I want to join that community. There are people that aren't going to write anything, that are still following it because they think it's really cool. And so now, they're going to have a vested interest in Ratatouille the musical, despite maybe never even seeing the movie, and having no idea what the background is for it. And so fan theories and speculations and the communities therein can benefit a Hollywood movie, or any sort of art for that matter, a lot. So overall, I think that fan theories are really just part of the entertainment landscape now. Some creatives like them and encourage them, really like seeing them, and really even interact with them. Some hate them and really wish you would stop making them and blame them for films bombing in the box office. I think that they're just part of the landscape now. There are some fan theories that are correct and some that are not. Some that are realistic and some that are not. There are some communities that are amazing and encouraging, and whether the film is anywhere near their theory or not, they're still going to appreciate it and respect as an art form. There are some won't. But it's just part of the landscape now. You have people that go see it, you have people that review it, you have YouTube video essayers, and you have theorists, and they kind of follow up to my theory was or was not accurate. Like it or not, I think they're here to stay in some way, shape, or form, and I think the truth is they do as much good as they do harm. Sometimes they do more good. They'll generate buzz for a movie or create a project of some other kind that it never would have gotten that kind of press without it. Sometimes it does hurt a movie, but that's the politics, right? You really can't control it. This is now the end of the episode. I'm not going to tell you what next week's topic is. Instead, you can theorize that. But I will tell you that it has something to do with film and or theater. Until you figure it out, or until the next episode when I tell you, this has been Off Book. See you next week.